Deborah. Well, I'm kind of a newcomer compared to some of the people. I came to the city in 1956. I was a bricklayer. I worked for a guy by the name of Ernie Martin, laid brick on the Tichy houses and things like that. And in the winter of 1957, it was cold, so Ernie got me a job at the water department reading meters for $250 a month. And I drove back and forth from Greeley every day to 6 days a week because we were open on Saturdays. And so anyway, that's how I got to be at the water department. I worked at the water department for 46 years before I retired. So I had a very good career, and I met a lot of nice people and had a lot of good friends in the community. But Deborah mentioned there was one pump station. There were actually three. There was one at the office, one at 64th in Quebec, and one down at 80th Avenue down there. But everything was started by a few key people. It was people like L. Crow and Ernie Martin and Ron Pershing and Curly Edwards. They were involved in the fire department. They got a fire department started, and then they needed some water, so they formed the water district in 1953, and they drilled these deep wells. And they thought there'd be plenty of water for everybody, 3 deep wells. But once they drilled those, then people came out here to build, and they started building the Tichy subdivision. This area here had its own water. This little pump station back here was one of the pumps. But things started growing once the water came. And then in about 1955, they had to do something about the sewer, because everybody's putting all these septic tanks in, and they formed a sewer district. So it became known as South Adams County Water and Sanitation District. And over the years, we had to drill shallow wells, and then people started complaining their water was hard, and we put in water softeners, a big one down in Adams City, but that didn't really work. But what really made Commerce City was when we got the contamination from the arsenal. And that contamination, we had to prove that it was coming from the Army. They said, you prove it's coming from us, we'll take care of it. And we had a very good board. We had people like Harlow Leeper and Gene Klein and Bob Aragon and forget a couple of the others that were on at that time. But anyway, I remember the day we didn't know what to do. We had the citizens were upset. They said their water was contaminated, and so we were going through a real tough time. And we had several meetings, citizens meetings, where the Army would come in and the state would come in and the water district, and people were, they threw eggs at our cars. And we got a very bad image. Everybody, it was in the newspapers about Commerce City's contamination, so really nothing was going on. And I remember that the board was trying to figure out what to do. And I still remember those words that Harlow Leeper said. He said, we got to get more people to help us. We got to get these citizens committees, and we've got to get Tri-County Health, the school district, the fire district, the city of Commerce City. We need to come together and show force in this thing. So that's kind of how it happened. This committee was in on the negotiation between the state and the Army, and we made several trips to Washington. But once we got the funding, it was just like overnight. The image changed. And that's why you see all the growth, is because people came together and they showed a show of force, and we went forward. The Army, Gene Klein was one of them. I remember we went to Washington. She's sitting there crying and said, "Hey, you've ruined our image." And so they kind of felt that maybe they ought to do something, and they did. So we have the Klein Water Treatment Plant. We got more money where we've hooked on to Denver, and we get a lot of our water from the Denver Water Department. So the total image of the community has changed. If that hadn't happened, Commerce City would not have grown. You wouldn't see all these houses. It'd be basically what it was before, with a bad image. But a few people early on and through the years have cared enough about this community that they put themselves on the line. They weren't making any money doing this. They're just volunteers and not sitting on boards. But so a lot of these people that are living out here wouldn't be here if it hadn't been for people coming together and saying, hey, we want to do something for our community. So I could go on for hours, but I'm not going to. And I just thank you for inviting me to be here today.